Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Durso. I'm the Senior Manager of Industry Partnerships for Center State. Come to you to present on this topic. Been in the HR world almost 15 years now. I'm excited to be part of this presentation for Center State today. So we're going to go ahead and continue on. We'll talk about our table of contents here for a second. So we are going to talk about the supply and demand in the labor market. We are going to talk about competitive strategies that we're already using. This is our interactive portion for our Jamboard. And if you don't know how to jam, don't worry, I will go ahead and teach you. And then we're going to talk about competitive job attraction. We're talking about that structure, some different ways to think about it, some different elements, and then some tactics on how to do it. So excited to have you journey along. So next we're going to talk about that data. So, and I'll also take a moment, go ahead and use the chat function at any point. You can put in questions, you can introduce yourself, whatever you want to do on that side. I'll try to be attentive to the chat as best I can, but we have questions at the time of the end. We'll go ahead and we'll talk about that at the end. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're talking about labor market supply and demand. So first thing we're going to start with is we're going to talk about definitions. Okay. So we have Center State has an amazing service. It's called Jobs EQ. It's a relatively new service that we got on that side. It scrapes job postings from non-staffing companies to quantify actual people looking for jobs and the true demand. So I want to also put a note that says total supply. Candidates that are actively looking and willing and able to do the job. So willing and able. Willing and able means that they are not on unemployment. They will perform the job for industry standard wages, and they possess the skills. So want to put that as a key indicator. So we'll go ahead to our next slide. So we're going to talk about a couple different industries and just some real short kind of poking on a couple different occupations. So software world. So I think it's really interesting to look at the total supply and total demand. So again, that's supply is people looking, people that have indicated on their resumes that they want to be in Syracuse and they want to do this kind of career. So I think it's also really fascinating that remote work, in my opinion, is certainly affecting this number. CNY becomes more desirable for a number of amazing reasons. That's why we live here, because we love it. Just really excited to think about on that side. So we'll go ahead to the next slide. We're going to talk a little bit about manufacturing. So just just a small thread line. So we're going to look at 3 occupations on this side. So team assemblers, I always want to talk about that. So team assemblers, it's the way that the standard occupation code from the DOL and the government puts it as team assemblers. So people assembling items as a team, multiple people, but not electronics. So we also have electronic assemblers on there and supervisors production as well. Just as kind of a way to just get a small snapshot for what's going on. So again, candidates actively looking, they're not on unemployment, willing and able to work. All right, so final one we're going to look at from a data perspective. So food and beverage. So, this is a little bit of a different chart. You look at like that total demand and that total supply. So a little bit more even on that side, except for bartenders. So, which I think is interesting. Just want to also note too, so this data was scraped on April 14th. So up to date, trying to make it as relevant as we can for what's going on. Obviously food and beverage is still a lot of ups and downs and things like that, just because the nature of where we are in the pandemic. But just want to share some of that data with you today. So, so basically our data takeaway that we have, there are candidates out there, they're looking. So that's good for our inclusive attraction and retention. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a minute. And Lisa, you can go ahead and stop sharing your screen. And I'm going to share my screen on that side. And Lisa, if you can go ahead and drop that link in the chat, we're going to do a Jamboard. So if anybody hasn't done a Jamboard before, that's okay. I'm going to share my screen over here. So Jamboard basically is we're going to be able to work as an interactive group together to, share with each other. What strategies are you proud of for attracting and retaining employees right now? What's working for you? So here's how you jam. So Lisa, do you have, let's see here, we'll put the link in the chat right there. So if you go ahead, there's a sticky note over here. You can click that sticky note and you can type in, okay, something that I'm excited about that's working. So I work on childcare options is something that I tried to line up for my employees for attraction and retention. Doesn't have to be that, whatever it is, but just taking a moment, interacting with each other on that side. Go ahead and put stickies on the board. Message me if you're having a hard time with the Jamboard on that side. But just some things that you're proud of and that are working for you. We'll do this as a group for a couple minutes, talk about it. And then what we'll do is, I'll call on some people to if I see an interesting sticky, we'll have a discussion based on that side. Awesome. So I have some really interesting things that kind of came up on the board. And obviously we're going to talk about structure and tactics as a group here in a minute. But, there's already so many things that the CNY region is doing to be more creative and more responsive. And I think it's a really unique position that we're in these days. So I'm going to call out a couple of folks, and if you feel comfortable talking about it, come off mute and just, if you want to elaborate, share a little bit of something that's working for you on that side. That was really interesting. I don't know, it looks like it went away, but there was somebody that said there was a job board on the manufacturing floor showing where people were at. If anybody wants to come off mute and talk about that. Alex, sorry, that was me. That's okay.
Hi.
Come off mute, tell us about that a little bit.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So it's not a perfect system right now, but we were trying to come up with something for our manufacturing floor where we have a lot of jobs going on at once. And the goal was to be able for employees to be able to walk in the room and see, okay, these are the jobs that are active. It's kind of a red light, green light, yellow light system. If we're in red light, oh my goodness, what's going on? Is it that our rates are down? Are we having material delays? Is there other information that we need that we're missing? And to kind of create accountability throughout the whole team, not just have it be all about rates and down to the actual production worker. It's tricky to manage. It definitely needs one employee to kind of run the whole thing, which we don't have right now, but we're actively trying to figure out how to make that work.
That's awesome, Alex. I think that's really interesting too, because it really shares the vision. Like it gives people purpose of what's happening. That's awesome.
So thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Alex. Let's talk about, I saw somebody say COVID appropriate events to boost morale. Anybody want to talk about that?
That was me too.
Good, Alex, you're killing it.
Well, thank you. It's again, we're a big manufacturing facility, and it's not exactly glamorous on the floor, but we try to each month have at least one event. We were trying to do that pre-COVID too, so we're just trying to keep up with it and also keeping our employees safe. So for example, we did for St. Patrick's Day, we had a green bagel lunch, but we had everything prepackaged so that people could kind of just come to the table, grab a prepackaged lunch and go on their way to a safe place to eat. Over Valentine's Day, we had a board. We made this huge board with cups that had little prizes in them, and you got a chance. We used a Nerf gun. You got a chance to it was called Heartbreakers. You got to shoot the heart board, and there were little gift cards and lottery tickets and things like that. So just anything to try to keep as few people as possible in the break room, keep people safe, but still get them some additional little things to brighten their day, and also some food.
Amazing. I said anybody besides Alex who would jump off mute and just wanted to Alex, not that we don't love you, but talking about some strategies that you're proud of, exciting, excited about for attracting and retaining candidates? Anybody come off mute and we can just share. Michelle Kotler, are you there too?
So my role as employee coach, I just am so proud of Loretto for offering that to employees, because on a daily basis, I work with employees who are having challenges, life challenges, whether it be childcare, transportation, mental health, domestic violence, whatever it is. So I'm able to work with employees who are facing these challenges, have occurrences, coming in late, missing work, to try and help them resolve those issues that they're having so that they can be long-time successful employees here at Loretto. And it's a great opportunity, that a benefit to the employees here, and I think that it's helped tremendously.
Fantastic, Michelle. Anyone else want to come off and talk a little bit about something that they're proud of that's working for them?
Hi, this is Mary Malone McCarthy. And to Michelle's point, what we're seeing a lot of is, I had put this together of focusing on the whole employee, and that employees are in any type of role right now are dealing with more issues than they've ever seen before. And we're seeing organizations that are starting to address anything from, mental wellness to financial planning to childcare, and understanding what the issues are that their employees are dealing with and being a resource for them, whether it's having a Zoom call for just an open dialogue, bringing in different speakers, but employees are starting to find that they can get the support they need from their employer, which helps recruit and retain top talent.
That's awesome, Mary Malone. Thank you for sharing. So I think that was really interesting, folks. So, at the end of this slide, we'll share this slide deck with you and this board if there's anything else that you want to put on there or add to on that side, so we can make sure that we have those resources. All right, so we're talking about that competitive job attraction. So we've talked about what it means to be competitive and how you're doing it. And now we're going to look at some of that foundational competitive attraction and look at those items that we're meeting and discussing in more ways to think about it structurally. How else can we just be innovative on that side? So we're talking about just quickly elements of a competitive job. So this is what candidates are valuing and they're attracted by. Post-hire research, so this is actually what people are trying to find out from companies. These are really interesting to me because these are items that can be overlooked when advertising a role. So just last year, I had a staff of just so many people on that side. And previously I had a staff up to over 300 people. And honestly, these things on the screen were some of the last things that I thought about. I'm like, I have benefits, like everyone knows that. Like I have awesome consistent schedules, everyone knows that. So just trying to take a minute and we'll think about it on some different ways. And what we're going to do next is we're going to cover a couple different ways to deep dive on some of these examples, on some of these elements of competitiveness. All right, so the first competitive element deep dive we're going to talk about is inclusion. So belonging and purpose, inclusion, there's a lot of different ways to talk about it on that side. But I wanted to bring this up because some of the research behind it. If you feel alone, if you don't feel included, if you don't feel welcomed, if you don't feel like you make a difference, are you willing to stay? And I think that's really powerful on that side. So you think you're spending 40 hours or more a week at work. It's more time than you spend with your family. And I just think that's an interesting point. I wanted to bring that up on that side, is that, are you willing to stay? How does your work make you feel? As Mary said just a minute before, people are turning to employers to be just that rock in their life. So we're going to continue on. We're going to do one other kind of competitive element deep dive. So transportation, I have some numbers up here on some costs and things like that. We're thinking about just that overall element. So if you need a car to get to your location and you're going to attract a candidate realistically, how far away is it? Is this a job located somewhere I can get to? Is this a place that I can work with, that I can continue to get to? if I move to a different zip code or I get closer to this place, will my insurance go up? And will my car maintenance no longer be affordable? And will that prevent me from getting to work? So just some different elements of being competitive and thinking of that is just how those wages affect it, how some different elements kind of come together on that side. So, all right, so we'll continue on. So we talked about the elements of being competitive. We've talked about some different ways that we've taught, shared some strategies that we've used. But now what we're going to go into some tactics, some different ways to accomplish some of these bigger things that we're talking about. All right, so this is one of my favorite things, all right? I call it the P&P, the post and pray. We love to do it. We love to do it. It's so easy. It makes it so just relevant on that side. So we'll go ahead, we'll talk about it. I'm going to cover the post and pray, what I call, versus true diverse sourcing. Okay, and we're talking about gathering candidates, widening your nets, getting folks out there. So Indeed and ZipRecruiter, they have a place. We all need them on that side, and we all want great candidates, and we all want them from all backgrounds. So we're trying to think about it in a different way. So the post and pray, the P&P, it's static. There's a lot of algorithms behind Indeed and ZipRecruiter and things like that are going back behind the scenes and controlling what you're seeing and controlling how your job is getting out there. So what I want us to encourage you to think about is true diverse sourcing. And what that means is going to affinity groups and community places and a grassroots effort to get your job and your company in people's hands. Your reputation as a company, if it can live and breathe in the community, it's different. It's not just a job ad of what's going to happen out there. It's not just a post and pray. I'm going to find a qualified candidate. It's going to happen. I believe in it. No, it's you. It's active. It's going out and getting it. So go ahead. We're going to talk our next slide. Like, Megan, that sounds awesome. I would love it. How do I do it? Where do I start truly diverse sourcing? How am I looking at these different folks on that side? So I'm talking about 3 options. There's many options out there, so college programs. We're very lucky. We have a lot of colleges in the area sourcing for interns. There's current roles. There's local non-for-profits on that side. Also want to talk about the local non-for-profits. We have many non-for-profits with what are called job developers. This is a role within the non-for-profit where people are literally set up in that role to match people to jobs. Think of that job developer as a mini recruiter that's out there, that's just waiting for your call on that side, because they want their people to go to great jobs, get the job that they're qualified for, and go ahead and keep it forever, because that means they're not going to come back to that local nonprofit in theory, right? So also CNI works, access to candidates for people who are ready. So, but I want to put some notes on this. These engagements are it can be challenging and time consuming. There is, it's forming new relationships. It's figuring out how those relationships work. So what I'm going to do now is show you a technique to help make it easier. So this is the inclusive skills-based job ad. And we're still working on that name. It's a lot right there. So we'll keep putting it on that side out. So hiring for skills is 5 times more predictive of job performance than hiring for education, and 2 times more predictive than hiring for work experience. So really to marinate on that for a little bit on that side, because there's so much research behind this, and I can source and cite and everything on that side, but go ahead, check it out for yourself. It's pretty amazing on that side. So we're going to go ahead. Skills are the foundation of a quality hire. So rather than relying on education, credentials, past experience, and other proxies for ability, a skills-based strategy recognizes there are many ways to acquire knowledge and ability. So skill-based practices can help employers identify and articulate the skills needed in a role and build processes for assessing and validating those skills. So it's a lot. We're going to keep talking about it though. So our next slide, we're going to spend a little bit of time on this. So skills, trainability, they're essential and not essential duties. So I'll talk a little bit about that. Because when you're implementing an inclusive skills-based hiring practice, it can help employers reduce bias, increase diversity. If you can identify and articulate the skills needed in a role, you can fill skill gaps, support career development, reduce turnover, and open the door to more skilled employees from various backgrounds and industries. And, I'd love to know in the chat too, we may cover another time if you find it useful, how to screen for skills and how to interview for skills as well. And I also want to say skills and competencies, you might hear that word, those are interchangeable definitions. So skills, competencies, same things. I'm going to focus on using the word skills for this presentation, but just so you have it in the back of your head. All right, so we're going to look at two things. So again, Megan, this is really great. How do I do it? All right, so we're going to look at our traditional a pedigree-based job posting versus a skill-based job posting. Okay, so traditionally, there's qualifications. A skills-based job posting has required and preferred. Okay, that's the big difference. Red square, red rectangle versus green rectangle versus red rectangle over here. Okay, so what does that look like? So we go ahead to our next slide. So the qualifications. Okay, qualifications versus skills and competencies. So qualification and time-based experience requirements, they dissuade applicants, especially female applicants and candidates of color. They're less likely to apply if they don't check all the boxes. So I would encourage you to break it up, work with your leadership, and really think about what you need. Okay, so 4 years of sales experience is a qualification. What if there's an amazing candidate with 2 years above quota? Are they going to apply? They have a bachelor's degree in business. I love this one. What do you actually need? That one kind of drives me a little bit nuts. So first off, it can literally mean anything. What do you actually mean? Do you just need to be able to communicate with multiple groups? What is it? What's that skill? What's behind it? Another one I see a lot, 10 years of product development. Why 10? Why? I don't know. So you just knock someone out with 7 years who did not think they could do the job. So now this is not watering down candidates. You can still keep those items in mind, but you'd be surprised what you can find by even just changing the tone of your description in your ad like this. It's much more open. It's much more inclusive. It's finding somebody with the most skills available. So go on to our next slide on this side. So I'm going to partner with managers to identify these skills required for the job. So I want to emphasize, this takes work. You can't do it in a vacuum. It's definitely a conversation that you're having with your HR team, your leadership team on that side, because it's a different approach when you're thinking about, okay, can I remove that tenure requirement? Do I really need this? What does that actually mean for my job? So I wanted to just kind of like pause for a minute and just have people just, think about it on this side. So we'll go ahead, Lisa, we go to the next slide. So we have two tactics that I covered very broadly on this side. So true diverse sourcing and inclusive skills-based ad description, okay? Want to just take a moment and just say, leave it open for discussion and conversation on that side. What do you think? What questions do you have? Lisa, if we go ahead, drop the screen and we'll just see each other. You want to turn your camera on and just have a conversation as a group. We have two tactics here and a little bit of strategy. True diverse sourcing and that job ad. If you guys want to come off camera, come off mute, and just, have a discussion as a group. What are some thoughts?
Hey, Megan, it's Kurt D'Angelo with Equitable Advisors here. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you doing, Kurt?
Excellent. I think this information is fantastic because obviously certain things that I look for qualities of a good candidate for our firm don't really show up right on that list of, certain education or certain experience, right? Some of the things that we look for, you can't really find unless you actually sit down and talk with somebody. So like determination, drive, right? Some of those things are fantastic, right? Ability to set goals and accomplish them. Some of those things are fantastic as well, right? Morals and ethics, right? People that are likable, right? Some of those characteristics are huge, and you can't get that without actually sitting down and having a few conversations with them. So I think that sometimes will even outweigh too some of those other characteristics that you had listed.
Yeah, absolutely, Kurt. I think you can't source motivation.
Right.
You gotta talk to somebody about that. So
Exactly.
well, great. I'd love to get other thoughts. What else are, we went through it quick, but encourage anybody to come off mute and chime in on some thoughts.
Is it okay if I talk again?
Come on, Alex, come on down.
Hi. I also think that was great information. I'm just a quick comment that I'm realizing our job postings have all been based on technical job specs that we have internally and are definitely not the language that you suggested could definitely help us, I think, attract new candidates. Ours are just way too specific and very experience based, and so just to say that was helpful. So thank you.
Good. I would encourage anybody on the call too. You can certainly reach out. I'm a little bit behind right now on emails, so forgive me, it might take me a day or so, but if you have questions, if you have something you want to work out or play with, feel free. On that time, I'll leave my contact information at the end of it. But would love to hear any other thoughts, ideas, things that are working. Go for it.
Megan, this is April and I'm signed in under John, so it might look confusing. I think the skills versus qualifications is huge, very huge piece of this. And I also found it very helpful for us to be considering the transportation issue in terms of what percentage of the salary it's really costing people to get to work and back. And this whole thing is just fantastic. I thank you so much.
I'm Jamie Lawler-Wagger. I'm one of the media managers over with Cumulus. You probably know us by our radio stations, but we're also a full-scale digital agency. Right now, I think any week I'll talk to probably anywhere from 20 to 50 clients, and this week I want to say 95% of them, it was all asking how should we be recruiting. It's weird. Like I thought maybe like the moons have come aligned because it's never been so incredibly like everything has been recruitment this week. So it was kind of funny that this happened the same week. And the summary I got from pretty much every single client is that job postings are getting us to first base. So in the whole strategy of recruitment, honing in on that, like the Indeed sites and post, like you said, the post and pray, it's only getting them to first base. How do we get people who are already employed? Because the fact of the matter is, 50 to 60% of the American workforce is sort of a passive job seeker. I'm employed, but I'm open to options. And so that's been really where the conversations have gone all week, is how do we get those people who are already employed? And I think it's a big piece of it, what we discussed before, all those advantages, all those great things that each company is doing to, reward employees. That's really what's giving them the competitive edge. But and obviously what we do is try to get those things into the ears and in front of everybody who should be a potential applicant. But everybody's sort of in that same boat of, we post and we can do as much as we can just to say, here's what we do, we're out there. But it's only getting them, 30% there. You're getting the people who are actively looking, whereas a lot of the times the workforce is only as big as it is. There's not a huge influx right now. So, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fundamental, disparity we have in a lot of like the trades certificates, the CDL. A lot of that isn't, the volume isn't there. So that's a piece obviously we work on as a community moving forward. But yeah, everybody's kind of in that same boat. So we're launching a job fair website in May. So we're hoping to kind of get that piece out there and then encourage, people who are not necessarily, they're waiting out the unemployment to get in fast, because eventually those benefits are going to run out. And at that point, there's going to be a huge influx into the I'm looking for a job market. So we're really trying to encourage people to start considering that earlier. So that's what we've been up to.
There you go. Love it, Jamie. So I want to talk a little bit about, just kind of with the group here, thinking about identifying those skills. And anybody thought, I just kind of put it out there in the world, anybody thought about how they might go about reinventing how they put out skills? How do they put out those competencies on that side? And how do you think about working across a whole team to do that between leadership, first, front end operations?
I think there's probably there's definitely a huge disconnect, I think, between, frontline managers and, kind of the HR department. I think a lot of times something gets kind of lost in how it gets translated. So I think it's brilliant to make sure that when you're putting these things together, that, it's as plain English as possible. It's removed of all the kind of internal jargon, like Alex kind of mentioned. And going back, I was just about to comment. I just want to throw this in. At Jobs Plus, we kind of go a lot by Patrick Lencioni's hungry, humble, smart. And if you might get the smart if you have the qualifications, but I don't know if you're going to get the humble and the hungry from the candidates that you're looking for when you knock them out with some of those more traditional levels of education or certification or whatnot. So I think showing those things. I was also thinking about too, and this is probably a little bit untraditional, but it's kind of how I operate. But in a lot of ways, in describing the job to somebody, you could even say, you may have even watched 60 hours of YouTube videos on video production. Then this job is for you. And kind of calling out some of those passions, the things that people kind of do on their own, but don't think about it in terms of a job description.
Love it, John. Any other comments and things that you want to talk about with the skills or breaking down that jargon or trying to make things more accessible? I can share. I'm going to share something with everybody that I heard from, I worked with another member the other day. So there was a group of folks that are trying to think about like, okay, how do I get more people interested in electrical assembly? And it actually turned it into a Facebook quiz. Like, do you like taking apart and fixing cell phones? Like, do you like, are you the person they call, like your family calls, so if they have a computer problem? And just like did like something, it was different on that side, but it wasn't X qualification. It was, what's that skill behind it? So I'll share with that. But Christina, I see you coming on.
Oh, I just know that sometimes when you're on Zoom and you see all the black boxes, it's very hard if you feel like Black Mirror. So I turn my camera on to stand with you. But I'm an egg processing manager in Elbridge, New York. So agricultural labor, it's something that we're just far enough outside the city. We're not on a bus route, and we get so many people interested in the job, but the nearest bus route in the village of Camillus is just not sustainable, or efficient for them. And so it's hard to see someone eager and willing and just not be able to connect the dots. So
we're talking about the elements of a competitive job. So, we've talked a little bit about sourcing today. We talked a little about posting and some different things to think about on that side. I'd love to hear it in the chat. We're thinking about doing a series on workforce and kind of different elements, whether it's interviewing or screening or different ways to cast that net wider, or any of these other elements of a competitive job.
On the wage compression issue?
Yeah.
Sure, yes. So we're an architecture, engineering, professional services industry. And it's extremely difficult to find candidates, and they're in our younger folks, maybe the 2 to 7 years are getting offers, for huge wage increases to join other organizations, and and it's just it's becoming a real issue. So then you have in order to keep them, a lot of times you have to match what they're seeing in the marketplace, and we're coming up with it's just a dual issue. There's not folks out there to replace them. We think we do a pretty good job at keeping them with culture and training and education and all that, but we're really facing a difficult challenges with once that happens, we're needing to look at the whole organization. How does that impact everyone else? And it's not even in just one of it's in civil engineering. We're seeing it in mechanical, electrical, plumbing. But anyway, it's just something we're all struggling with in the industry.
Great. Well, I appreciate it. We'll end a couple minutes earlier today. Lisa, if you just want to show the final slide on that end. If you have any questions, comments, things you want to discuss on that side, there's my email and contact information. Hope you found the session valuable, and we'll keep listening to your feedback for additional things that we're going to talk through, and other things that we can bring to groups to discuss and move forward with. So everyone have a wonderful Friday, and hopefully we'll see you all soon.